Thanks for joining us once again. Now, after months of speculation about whether or not Russian President Vladimir Putin will be attending a Brics summit in South Africa later this year, it now appears he will not be attending the event. This comes after South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and Putin met privately last weekend during talks with a delegation of African leaders attempting to mediate peace in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
According to the reports, Ramaphosa used last week's peace tour to urge Putin not to attend the summit in person. Ramaphosa is expected to make an announcement about the hosting of Brics soon. In March, the International Criminal Court (ICC) issued a warrant for Putin's arrest over alleged war crimes in Ukraine, obliging South Africa as an ICC signatory country to arrest him. Joining us this morning to discuss this further is Sisman Motlaong, a political science lecturer at Northwest University in South Africa. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Right. Let's get into the conversation, Sisman. The official announcement has not yet been made by President Ramaphosa. All we can see are indications of what might be people urging that, the ICC urging that South Africa does make this arrest, and people not being quite sure if this arrest is going to happen or not. But what do you make of these developments, saying that as regards South African president convincing the Russian president not to come to the Brics meeting?
Yeah, I think at first, South Africa, we understand, has had expressed that it would give immunity to everyone coming for the conference. And with the recent developments in Russia concerning the domestic tensions and the struggle for power, I think it makes sense when Putin would decide not to come. And whether this is Ramaphosa convincing him to stay, I don't really, I'm not so much convinced that it is Ramaphosa who appealed to him to stay. But for me, it would make sense for Putin to remain at home, because you cannot go to a different country for a conference when there is a attempted coup in your country. It really does not make sense.
Okay, well, do you think that Vladimir Putin would really have attended the meeting? And the events over the weekend, could that also have played into this narrative now that, he would rather just stay back in Russia? Of course, if you follow the Prigozhin coup that lasted for 30 minutes.
Yeah, at the time, before this attempted coup, I believe that Putin would have come, and South Africa would not be sinister to have extended an invitation to him. You'll remember they had also extended that invitation to him. So I think he would have come, and they would have protected him, not arrest him. It's only this incident that emerged recently that now changes the picture. And from that understanding, I have no doubt that South Africa will have not arrested him.
Okay, let's talk about the potential. Do you see the possibility of the venue for this summit or the location of the summit being moved? Or, is it going to happen? There have been conversations about it potentially being moved to China and different speculations about where it will hold. So do you think it's still going to happen in South Africa, or do you foresee that it might be moved?
Currently, why would it have been moved? I think it was supposed to be moved, or there was talk for it to be moved because Putin is unable to come to South Africa, or maybe to save South Africa that dilemma of arrest or not arrest, then take it to China. You solve the problem. And now if Putin is not coming, and it's confirmed he's totally not coming, you want to go back to that again. Why should it be moved from South Africa? For me, currently, I have no doubt that it will remain in South Africa. Recently, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, when she was speaking, she was adamant, Dr. Naledi Pandor, that the summit will be here in South Africa. And so far, there's no evidence, or there's no hint or indication that the summit will be moved from here to China. And if it has to be moved to China, for me, it also makes sense. It would allow Putin to go to China without any dilemma. And if he went there, we don't have any kind of tension coming from America on China, because China is a big power itself. So it would not be coerced or being intimidated by the ICC or America itself. So China would have been the perfect place for it to be held.
Great thing you just mentioned, intimidation. I want your thoughts on Cyril Ramaphosa and, of course, South Africa generally. It's seeming like they're being intimidated here and, but at the same time still getting themselves involved with this, whole crisis, because this is obviously a crisis between, Vladimir Putin, Russia, and the West, NATO. Almost barely anything to do with Ukraine in principle. But do you think that, do you agree with those who say Cyril Ramaphosa should not get himself involved with this? He should, stay on the side and, just speak for South Africa, maybe even take sides with the West, to protect his interests?
In this Russia-Ukraine tension, we see a hegemonic project arising, and mainly from the West. This is what they are saying to other countries. You either are on the side of Ukraine, support Ukraine, and if you don't support Ukraine, you are on the side of Russia. You cannot be in between. And this is what South Africa has been saying. We are non-aligned. And this is not a recent principle. You go and read the Freedom Charter of South Africa. It had already spoken that South Africa will respect the sovereignty of other nations, and its position is for negotiated settlement of conflict, not war. And this is what South Africa is trying to put on the West, to say, let's negotiate. We are non-aligned. Yes, then there is that element of intimidation that is perceived when there is now talk of AGOA, South Africa being removed from AGOA. There is now talk of your European countries no longer maybe having some aid given to some African countries. This is a soft power, or using that financial power against those that do not align with Ukraine. And I think it is important that Mr. Ramaphosa was speaking to this. You cannot be quiet when it's an international issue and affecting African countries. That's why recently they took a journey to Russia. And this is something that was unique when they report. You hear President say, it is for the first time that the delegation speaks to Ukraine and Russia in a very short period of time. Virtually, you spoke to them together at the time. So, and what they were saying was talk, negotiate, settle this thing peacefully. But this is not what you hear from Europe, from the West. They are saying we will provide ammunition, we'll provide aid to Ukraine to perpetuate the conflict, not necessarily to stop it. This is now what you see as a different contribution that Ramaphosa and Africa are bringing into the discussion.
All right. Very interesting perspective there, and of course a bold one also. I'm hoping that it all turns out great for everybody. Of course, the crisis needs to come to an end as soon as possible. Those lives being lost over there, should really not be happening. But thanks a lot for joining us this morning. We would love to speak with you again as things develop. Thanks for your time.